World champions.
Swinging a miss, struck him out. The Philadelphia Phillies are 2008 World Champions of Baseball.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Flyers are going to win the Stanley Cup. The Flyers win the Stanley Cup. For the lead. Yes! Iverson, wow, what a fake off Daniels as he broke his ankles and got all the way to the cup.
Ladies and gentlemen, do not adjust your televisions, your computer screens, your iPads. It's breakfast and baseball. And we're drunk on broad. Jay, welcome in, brother. It's early, rise and shine. We got exciting Phillies talk to talk about. Brother, how you doing?
Doing great, man. It's always good when I get together with my man Don. It's been a week. I think we had a week off. Well, this past week I had to miss because of work.
Yeah, man. Hey, listen.
Good to be able to chop it up, and obviously the big news coming out. Obviously, Bryce Harper's back.
Oh man,
Guess who's back? Shady.
Listen, he's back. Didn't waste any time. Right, came up in the first inning with the bases loaded. Gets a hit, gets a couple runs on the board, puts a crooked number up in the first inning, which is exactly what you want out of your MVP.
I swear, if I didn't know any better, I would think that he has the Superman shirt underneath his shirt because I think he's Superman. Honestly, I've been saying it for. The funny thing is obviously my tweet went viral last year when I was, pissed off. Obviously, Harper was struggling, and I made a tweet. We all do that, but I still like to take credit for the turnaround, and obviously, he's gonna, he's picking up right where he left off when he got hurt.
Right.
So, I mean, he was hitting well over 300. I know he only went one for 4 or 1 for 5, but he obviously lit up the crowd.
Yeah, man.
Our man Joe was there.
Joe was looks like Joe was in the building.
Didn't invite me. I was a little salty about that. I'm like, how do you not invite your boy to the game?
And listen, I saw the pizza. Wherever he got the pizza from, man. I think it looked like a Manco and Manco or whatever it was, but it looked saucy. It looked really good.
What do you think the over/under was on him waiting in line for that pizza? Probably
hour plus.
Good hour.
Hour plus, probably. Joe, give us the details. But listen, exciting. They put up 6 runs in the first 2 innings last night. 45 minutes. Ooh, okay. I would not have bet the under on that.
Still long.
But Joe, I do not doubt that it was completely worth it. Oh my God, I can't imagine. And that's actually one of the new ballpark ads, right? That's one of the new things out on Ashburn Alley. But listen, Jay, outside of that, that 4-game series against the Mets, right, where they lose 3 out of 4. The month of August has been really kind to the Phillies, right? They're taking advantage of those games with Washington, Miami, Cincinnati, now Pittsburgh. Right, they're 17 games over 500 right now. So they got a lot. There's a lot of good stuff happening. You can only play who's in front of you. But I love the fact that they're taking advantage, right? They're 6 out of the last 7. Playing really well. They're getting a little bit of this injury bug thing with, you and I and, our crew were talking about, the Wheeler injury. You want to talk about that for a minute?
Yeah. So obviously Zach Wheeler is extremely important to this team. I mean, he's your ace.
Truly.
He's your number one. they did interview him yesterday, and he basically came out and said that he's pretty much pitched with tendonitis every single year. And he actually wanted to go, but the Phillies kind of told him, like, let's just give you a little break, rest it, because, you know, you're going to be going into the playoff run here. And I actually, the more I think about it, at first I was annoyed, and I was actually very concerned, because when you hear tendonitis, a lot of times that means something else is coming down the track.
Right.
But,
that means like Tommy John in the
well,
future.
yeah.
Like,
I mean, I had all these worries, and that's normal because you see it a lot. But after I heard him, you know, talk yesterday, I feel 100 times better knowing that he's had this prior and it's okay. It's not something that's going to be, you know, a long-term thing. Hopefully, obviously.
Right. Now, listen, we got the same kind of news from Sir Anthony, right? That it initially looked a lot worse than it was. Turns out it's not as bad as they think it is. He'll probably be back sooner than later. To me, right, that like if you want to have a viable chance in any kind of playoff series, right, Wheeler's a guy that's got to be there. So in my mind, you plug and play, you let him rest, you bring him back only when he's absolutely ready to do so. And that way, that first playoff series, you get an opportunity to be able to have him be part of that first run at it, because the way that it plays out, right, that first playoff series is going to be 3 games at the home team. So they got the Mets, right, lead division, and they're kind of running away with it, right? At this point, they're 2 games up on the Braves, but the Phillies are 9.5 back, right? So there's 7.5 games between them and Atlanta. I'm not saying that it's not able to be, they're not able to be caught, but the idea that they have 7.5 games and the Braves are no slouch, they're looking at that second wild card.
I mean, I got to be honest with you. I don't at this point. I'm not really worried if we. All I want to do is get into the dance, and if we finish second or third wild card, to me, it's really not much of a difference. I think I don't really want to face the Braves in the first round of the playoffs. That, to me, they would be the tougher opponent just because of the fact that they play us a lot tougher. But listen,
even between them and the Mets.
Well, oh no, you're not going to have to face the Mets till, you know, obviously the round.
Right.
I'm not even thinking.
You're talking about just the first one.
Yeah, but I look at it as we went 50-some games without Bryce Harper, and we were successful. Right. If you're going to miss Wheeler for like 2 hours, it would be like 2 hours compared to 50 games when he misses only a week and a half of games. You're playing lesser competition. It's not like you're facing the Mets. He didn't do well against the Mets anyway. He struggled. I think it's actually a perfect timing because you just kind of give him a little reset. And last night showed that you can get by with a guy like Bailey Falter. Obviously he's not a guy that's going to give you a ton of innings, but if he can just pitch well, I think
he's been productive.
Well, and that's the thing. The Phillies have had a lot of guys that have just kind of plugged in and been productive. I mean, they've made, like, I know we made a lot of noise about getting David Robertson at the deadline, and that was huge, by the way, because now you have a backup plan for Sir Anthony if he does miss. You have it, but you got Edmundo Sosa, who obviously they got for more of a defensive purposes type thing, and obviously what he does on that side of the baseball.
Right.
But he's actually been a great addition. Obviously, Brandon Marsh, you didn't expect him to be obviously on the IL, but he will be back soon too. And that helps you in center field, obviously gives you better defensive play. So I think going into the playoffs, you've not only fixed your offensive woes because you have Bryce Harper back,
Right.
you've not only fixed your pitching woes because you added Syndergaard, you added Robertson, but you also fixed your defense. And that's huge because, like I said, and you see guys that realistically were not known for their defensive play actually making some great plays. Like Alec Boehm, I think of. Alec Boehm has done a 360 when it comes to, his play in the field. He's a guy that I never thought would ever be able to be a third baseman. And if you look at it now, yeah, he's not ever going to be a top echelon defensive player, but he's holding his own at the position. And that's super, super exciting for me because I'm already excited about Alec Boehm. I'm a huge Alec Boehm fan. I've been pushing for Alec Boehm. Last year when a lot of people wanted to give up on him, I said, no, man, it's baseball. It's too soon. You can't just give up a guy that has a lot of talent. Like,
Right.
Alec Boehm, to me, is a guy, if you look at his metrics, obviously he's still not really hitting for a ton of power. But honest to God, he could have a hitting title. He could contend for a batting title here in the near future. And I think he's a guy that, he's going to get 15 to 20 home runs once he continues to fill out. Like, he's driving the ball like he was when he first came up. And you look at him as a, just as a physical specimen.
Right.
He has all the tools to kind of do it. But what he's done in the field to me is even more of a bigger deal because we didn't think, like I said, a lot of people were already talking about getting rid of Hoskins and moving him to first. And I think the fact that he's turned it around.
Joe and I talked about this for like a minute on Wednesday night. He did a complete 360, right? Exactly what you're talking about. And the point of inflection that Joe and I talked about was that meme of him walking off the field. Right, where he goes, I fucking hate this place.
Yeah,
right.
He was honest.
If you go back and look at his production before that and after that, I think the fact that he was able to just own it, right? He didn't deny it. He didn't try to walk it back. He was like, yeah, he's like, that's how I felt. Sorry, like, but that brutal honesty, I think, allowed him to be like whatever, and his defensive play has been incredible considering where they were last year, right? I remember listening to, God, who was I listening to last summer? All right, so the show on WIP, it was Ray Didinger and Glenn Macnow. Ray Didinger used to call them the corner butchers. Right, they were so bad defensively that you couldn't rely on them at all. Now he's reliable in that spot. It's a really great place for us to see him. At the same time, he's productive at the plate. He's a guy that you can put in the middle of your lineup. And in reality, with the guys that they have with Harper and Hoskins and Real Muto and Schwarber and Castellanos, you don't need him to be this monumental hitter, right? You can plug him in and get production from him. To me, I look at that guy and say, he's young, he's controllable, he's productive. And you were talking about, Jay, like body type. The body type reminds me like it's Jason Worth-ish, right? He's a tall, lanky, productive player. I like it. I like where he's at.
I like it a lot. And I looked at last night when I saw the lineup come out. A lot of people were like, just automatically expecting that Bryce Harper was going to go back into the 3-hole. I absolutely love that Rob Thompson put him in the cleanup spot because I think Bryce Harper could hit 3 or 4 and do the same amount of damage. It's not going to be one of those things where, oh my God, they moved him out of the 3 hole. What the hell are they doing? I like keeping Boom in the 3 hole because I think it's going to actually make Boom a better player because he's going to see more fastballs because nobody wants to pitch to Harper.
Right.
And also, it gives you that viable cleanup spot that you really haven't had. I mean, I wanted Schwarber all year because of the fact that he is your number one power hitter. He's the guy that hits most of your home runs, but
Right.
we don't really have a leadoff hitter. Now, by putting Harper in the cleanup spot, you keep Schwarber in the leadoff where he's done well.
Right.
And you got Hoskins who's an on-base machine. So you saw it last night right off the bat. First inning, Schwarber gets on. Hoskins comes up, gets another hit.
Right.
So it's second and third, no outs. Boom, gets a hit. Or what was it? Bases loaded, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Harper comes up with the bases loaded.
Comes up and he gets the hit. So
right.
I just think it's a recipe for success. And I look at what this offense has started to slowly do, where we've talked about what's the word I'm looking for? We've talked about it ad nauseum about the fact that they're very streaky as far as, every single hitter that they have in their lineup kind of is one of these guys that's either tearing it up or they're in a slump. But if you look at the collective bunch as a whole, as of late, they're all trending in the right direction as far as not being in a slump, but kind of being able to consistently hit the ball. I mean, Nick Castellanos, obviously he just lost his hitting streak, but he had the longest hitting streak in Major League Baseball just two days ago. Rhys Hoskins, even though his average is kind of went under 250 again, he's still putting up production. Alec Boone, we've talked about it. He had went backwards, and now he's back up to 292. JT Realmuto, to me, is the guy. Like, between JT Realmuto and Castellanos, the first halves that they had, which were god-awful in my opinion, if you look at the numbers.
Yeah.
The way that they've kind of turned their season around, and they're now kind of trending in the way that their normal career trajectory shows.
Right.
JT Realmuto, not only is he doing it at the plate, he has 16 stolen bases, which is number one in catchers in the league.
Crazy, right?
And he's also thrown out the most runners in Major League Baseball. He's back to playing Gold Glove defense at catcher. So JT Realmuto, as much as a lot of people want to say he's overrated because of his contract and this and that, I get sometimes why they say it. Like, it's a lot of money to put into one position where if you're not really looking at it as catcher being a total advantage, I totally disagree with that because I think when the Phillies trot out JT Realmuto compared to 27 other teams in the league, they have a huge advantage at catcher. I mean, the only guys that I might say are better, but they're not even better defensively, would be Salvador Perez from the Royals. I mean, he's an offensive machine, especially last year. He had, I think, 48 home runs.
Okay.
But other than that, I don't really know any other teams that you could say, wow, that catcher is does it all. And JT, by the way,
he really does
that, but it's also calling the game. He probably calls one of the best games, behind the plate in baseball. So kudos to him because I'm not going to lie. I'm a guy that bashed JT Realmuto, but he has definitely turned it around. What are your thoughts on that? Because I think between him and Castellanos,
I think you're now starting to see it kind of all come together, right? I think there was a period of adjustment where they had the ability to be able to kind of go on these little streaks where someone would get hot, someone would kind of fall off. To me, I'm looking at it's kind of all kind of converging on the same point right now, where you're getting productive at bats from Castellanos, right? You're getting defensive and offensive production from JT. Schwarber is continuing to be the guy that he's been all year long. And it's kind of converging at the right time too, right? They're putting these games, right? When was the last time, Jay, that we saw a team like this Phillies team was, what do we say, 17 games over 500? Right? It's been a really long time, right? 2011. So I'm looking at this is the turning point, right? This is the year. Do you remember the year before?
07.
Right. In 07, there's been a ton of Twitter comparison to 07, right? The line the records kind of line up right around the same time. Some of them are more productive than they were in that year, but this is the kind of year, like, I think with the right additions to this roster, this could be a team that could challenge for the Mets. Like Joe and I talked about, right, the ability of being able to add the shortstop in the offseason, right? Whether that's Trey Turner, whether that's Dansby Swanson, whether that's Xander Bogaerts, whoever that is, right? If they have the ability, I think that's a position where they're going to capitalize and try to add, because we now know that the luxury tax, like going over the luxury tax, is like, it is what it is. I think they've seen the evidence to say going over the luxury tax is okay, right? Because you went over with some of the moves, some of the moves you made this offseason, and you got production from those guys, right? They weren't misses. So I think the idea that they go over that they continue to now, do I think they're going to turn into the Yankees? They just spend uncontrollably? I don't think so. But I think you're getting the production. You're going to see next year this team take a leap and really, really challenge the Mets for this division.
Well, I mean, I think, right now I look at the Mets as the gold standard. I mean, what they're doing right now, even though the Dodgers have a better record, I actually think the Mets are going to win the World Series. I know Phillies fans don't want to hear that, but I think they have that team of destiny type.
Jay, I think I just vomited in my mouth.
I know that, but I've been saying it all year because I saw a difference in the team, and I just see how that team is built. I mean, they have all the pieces to win a World Series. They do. And they're playing.
They do.
The type of baseball that they're playing, they hit with runners in scoring position. They have excellent pitching. They have one of the best closers in baseball right now. I mean, their closer has more strikeouts than 80% of starters. If that doesn't tell you how dangerous that guy is, he just comes in and throws smoke, and nobody can hit him. Like now,
Jay, here's what I love.
Can happen in the playoffs, and yes, I agree.
This is what I was going to talk about.
Are comparable to the Mets as far as they can compete. But if you looked at how the Mets have played the Phillies this year, we're in another league. Now, I agree with you. You off season, you bring in another guy or two, then the conversation could possibly change. Like, I think the Phillies, I've been saying it, even with getting Castellanos and Schwarber, that we're missing that one ingredient, like that one guy that can do other things, not just at the plate, but defensively. That's why I agree with you. I think Trey Turner would definitely be a needle mover, in my opinion, because if you got Trey Turner, you could probably move Stott to second base, and then you have you're replacing Segura, because you have money coming off the books. You have Didi's money already it's still there, but you cut him.
It's there, but it's not.
That's $19 million. You have Segura, who's another probably I don't know what he makes, $15 million. That's gone. So you're going to have money to spend.
Right. Joe brought up maybe if in the offseason can you move Segura for, bullpen help for third starter, fourth starter, right? You could. He's still a guy that has a lot of value.
I thought he was a free agent, Segura.
Is he a free? I'll have to double check.
I'm not sure, but that's my point. If he is, then you just let
Yeah.
him go. But yeah, I agree. If he's not, you could definitely move him. Listen, I love Segura, but let's face it, he has his own deficiencies where there's a reason why Segura's been on 6 teams in the last 10 years.
All right, so he's on the books for 17 million
Next year.
next year.
Yeah, well then.
So, he's whether that's appealing to somebody that he's got an expiring contract, maybe he's an addition to a piece. Maybe he goes back to a team that he played for. Maybe he goes back to Seattle. Maybe that Seattle is kind of a team that is on the verge of the wild card, maybe a couple pieces away. Just a thought.
No, I mean I think he's definitely a guy that could have some value. But like I said, I think looking at this team in general, playoffs, it kind of starts a brand new season. So it's like even.
Truly.
We get in the dance. I think if you do come down to a series against the Mets, as long as our guys perform, it could be a different result. But once again, I have to go by what I've seen this year.
Right.
And what I've seen is night and day compared to the two teams. Like,
Truly.
it seems like they have our number. And in watching the games that I have watched, because I haven't watched many games other than the ones that the Phillies have played the Mets, but I have watched a couple when they've been on national TV.
Right.
The difference that I see in the Mets this year compared to years past is that they have a certain swagger, and I think it's the manager that they brought in. They have a great manager.
Yeah.
Obviously, the owner went all in and just spent a lot of money where previous years they kind of nickeled and dimed and their way
Right.
to making a roster. And they have a lot of homegrown talent. It's funny because the Mets remind me of that 07-08 team from the Phillies where they brought in free agents, but if you look at most of their team, Pete Alonso, Jeff McNeil, Jake DeGrom, like most of their team is internal. And then they brought in like outside guys, like they brought in Scherzer. Obviously, Phillies didn't have a guy of that caliber on the pitching staff, but they traded for Francisco Lindor, who a lot of people were like, oh, he sucks because he had one bad year. And it's like, dude, if you watched Francisco Lindor in Cleveland, like you just knew that he was one of those generational shortstops. Like he's extremely talented. And like I said, I think that the Phillies have enough to compete come playoff time with Harper because you didn't have Harper in a lot of that time period.
True. Yeah. So, Jay, here's the thing I love about baseball, right? Baseball, once you get to the playoffs, anything can happen, right? And, I look back just recency bias, right? Like if you look at like the year the Phillies win the World Series, right? That entire year, the Phillies and Yankees were on this collision course to play in the World Series. But in the ALCS, the upstart Rays, right? They end up beating the Yankees, and the Phillies play the Rays in the World Series. And then you look at a team that, to me, that Phillies team that lost to the Cardinals, the Phillies were the best team in the NL that entire year. The Cardinals barely get in the playoffs, and they lose that series to the Cardinals in the first round of the playoffs. So to me, once you get into the playoffs, right, anything can happen. So I think it wouldn't surprise me if something happened in a way where the Phillies get in the playoffs. Like they've been horrible against the Mets all year long, right? It wouldn't surprise me if they get into a series with the Mets and they win, right? It would things like that.
I agree with you. 100%.
Things like that happen in baseball all the time, right? There was one playoff series, I want to say in the late 80s, where like the Phillies and Dodgers during the year, the Dodgers won like 8 out of 9 games, like crushed them all year long. They played in the playoffs, and the Phillies beat them in a playoff series.
Oh yeah,
Like,
listen, I'm not. I would never say never. I'm just saying I'm not really even looking at that. I'm looking at it
okay,
more of like let's just get in because I don't want to look too
yeah,
far ahead because anything, like you said, can happen once you get in.
that's what keeps me
I do
hopefully
think.
optimistic.
Well, it's good to be optimistic.
Yeah, oh yeah,
I'm not. Trust me. I want to have that same optimism. I just look at teams as like certain levels, and I look at the Phillies as a lot of the sample size that we have right now was without Bryce Harper. So it's hard for me to tell because how good would we have been if Harper didn't miss 50 some games? Like it how big of a difference is Harper? Like that's where I look at baseball and I look at star players and I look at how much of a difference do star players, one star player, let's just say, because that's what Bryce Harper is, makes when they're out of the lineup as opposed to being in the lineup. Because if you realistically look at their records right now, their record was better without him than with him. Now I know that's skewed because he missed, games, but
right.
I'm just going by what the numbers say. Their record was better without him than with him. But my gut tells me that had he been there, things would have been much different, even against the Mets, like in those series. I just look at it, what he brings to the table. The missing link that the Phillies had during this whole time was consistency. And to
Right.
me, Bryce Harper is the model of consistency. Like
Right.
that's like the one missing thing that you can look at and you take away and you say, okay, well now he's back. I've seen guys, Ryan Howard, I remember, carried the Phillies in 06. Ryan Howard carried the Phillies in 07. Like there's players
Truly.
that are capable of actually carrying a whole team on their back throughout 1 month. We saw it with Schwarber in June. I think if Bryce Harper can continue, obviously he came back. I know it was in the minors, but he had the 3 home runs, and then he just comes back yesterday. First at bat, has a 2-run single, huge.
Right.
I think if he comes back and he can like all of a sudden right away be hot and not have like a little struggling lull where he's kind of not, his timing's off. I think if he can just come flat out and just continue where he was, I mean, they're playing the level of competition. We've talked about it. You can't help who you face. And I saw another amount of people that say, "Oh yeah, the Phillies are playing shitty." Who cares? We're playing shitty teams, and we're being successful at doing what we should. We're taking
Right.
care of business. So
right. So like you look at like this next upcoming series, right? And not to look ahead a little bit, but we're going to look ahead a little bit, right? That if you remember last year when they were like sniffing around the playoffs and they go out to Arizona,
sweat,
right? And they get swept, right? Now, right? They're going to finish up this series in Pittsburgh or with Pittsburgh on Sunday, right? And then they go out to Arizona, and then in September, right? Now they're playing San Francisco, Miami, Washington, Miami. Right? Those are 4 straight series. 5, right? Between Pittsburgh, Arizona, San Francisco, Miami, Washington, and Miami. Right? That they can kind of run through those games. Right? They have the lineup to be able to run through the next 5 series before they face Atlanta, Toronto, and Atlanta again. That they can really put some distance between themselves and any of the other teams that are vying for that last playoff spot between, I'm just going to pull it up just so I don't misquote it here, right? Between the Padres, the Brewers, the series with San Francisco will be big because San Francisco is they're already 6.5 out of that last wild card spot. So I'm looking at this team and saying, capitalize on what you got, which is the cupcake part of your schedule at the best time to create that separation in the standings.
Dude, I couldn't agree with you more. And there's something else I've been meaning to talk about with you.
Sure.
I just think, and listen, I've been guilty of it myself, but can we just finally agree that Aaron Nola is an ace?
Oh, man.
I've been wanting to say it, and listen, I know we'll probably have another show down the line, but what he's been able to do, I think a lot of times we look at the wrong numbers. We look at ERA. And ERA is a important statistic for any pitcher. It's been for forever. But I think you got to look deeper when it comes to pitching. And realistically, if you look at Aaron Nola's numbers,
right,
he had one bad year, and that was last year. And it wasn't even a bad year. His ERA was bad. It was inflated at a 4.63. But I look at WHIP as being a more important statistic when it comes to pitching.
Okay.
Which is walks, hits per inning pitched.
Okay.
And if you look at Aaron Nola's WHIP, every single year it's right in line. I mean, last year was his worst. Once again,
okay.
I said last year was an outlier.
Right.
Look at his WHIP this year, 0.93.
Yeah.
Actually, on pace to break his record. He had 223 strikeouts. 229 strikeouts in 2018, which was the year after his Cy Young, almost Cy Young win.
Right.
He's probably going to have 240 strikeouts this year. So the guy is just.
Listen, I will, Jay.
He's an innings eater.
Yeah, I will not argue with you in terms of what you're getting in terms of production from him this year. I think the argument that a lot of people will make is the consistency, right?
You really can't. You could say that, but look at Willis. I'm going to read down his ERA. So he had a 3.59 his rookie year
in September, right?
Okay,
like
that's
that,
fine.
like right.
That's
so
a fair
like
point, but
where people say, you look at his when they say consistency, right? It's not maybe consistency from season to season, but it's consistency throughout the season.
Do you know who had bad Septembers? You know a guy that's had quite a few bad Septembers and bad playoff series? Clayton Kershaw.
Yeah,
okay.
Absolutely.
But this is what I'm saying. Like, you're talking about consistency, but
yeah,
I think Aaron Nola is pretty consistent. Like, if you look at his starts, so 2017, right? That was the year before his Cy Young. He had 27 starts.
Right.
2018, 33 starts. 2019, 34 starts. 2020, 12. Now, that was the COVID year. So that was would have been on pace for 34 starts.
Okay.
2021, 32 starts. And now 2022, he's on pace for 34 starts. So that's pretty damn consistent as far as games pitched. ERAs. So he had a 3.59 his rookie year. 4.78 2016. That was in 20 games. 3.54. 2.37, 3.87, 3.28, 4.63. That, which is what I'm saying is an outlier, right. And then 3.08 this year. That's pretty damn consistent.
Yeah. And listen, when you and sometimes, Jay, you look when you look at the whole picture, right? It gives you a different perspective as to and. Part of it is the hard part for Aaron Nola is that he hasn't had the opportunity because of the team's production to pitch in those really meaningful games down the stretch. But in the times that he has, his Septembers, and I don't have the statistics to back it up, but the Septembers for Aaron Nola have been, how do I say this kindly?
No, he's been horrible.
Right.
He's been horrible.
They've been less than desirable, right? So I think, right, this is the second year pitching with Wheeler, right, which can only help with his production. I think you're going to need Aaron Nola is an ace down the stretch to be able to get this team to be viable in a playoff series.
Dude, you're spot on.
Yeah.
And I think now's the time. Now's the time. Like
Now's
right
the
now,
time.
he could actually – I think Aaron Nola could change the narrative real quick if he has a great September here down the stretch, because then people are going to be like, wow.
Listen, Wheeler, right? Wheeler's out for a stretch. The team is, in the thick of a playoff run. It's looking like they're going to, unless they have a monumental collapse, they're going to be in the playoffs. So he's going to have the opportunity to pitch for like really, really important games down the stretch. So you're right. This is the time for him to flip the script on that, because if he can be a guy that they can throw out there every fifth day and know that they're going to get 7, 8 innings, right? You look at the start that he had, right? The complete game shutout, which is an anomaly in Major League Baseball at this point. But
well, he's had complete games in 2 out of the last 3 games. Now I get it. The one
was an 8 inning,
but still, that's not his fault.
No, not at all. But
now,
listen,
I agree.
That's the guy you need.
Well, he has to eliminate those crooked number games. He has to eliminate. Correct. And the problem that I see with Aaron Nola, it's always one inning that kills him. It's always that one missed pitch where he throws a pitch over the plate and it's hit for a home run or a bases clearing triple or whatever it is. Yeah. It's always one pitch that gets Aaron Nola in trouble. And it's like, dude, just work on that. Like, if you could fix that, you definitely could be like top tier. It's just, I agree that he is inconsistent. I agree his September is what really makes a lot of people iffy on Aaron Nola. But I also think that sometimes we're harsh as far as critics. Like, we expect the best and from our players. And rightfully so. That's why Phillies fans, that's why Philadelphia fans in general are considered some of the best fans in sports, because we care.
Right.
I mean, there's cities that fans don't even give a shit. They're worried about what's on TV, or, what's today's drama show. Like, we demand perfection, and unfortunately sometimes we're going to be disappointed. But I think you're right. I think Aaron Nola right now, the pressure is on because Wheeler's out. So your next few starts, you have to come out and you have to be the Aaron Nola that we just saw that went 9 innings and gave up, 5 hits. That's the Aaron Nola that we need moving forward. And if we get that, maybe finally those narratives, like I said, will be flipped to the point where people are like, you know what, we were wrong about Aaron Nola. Because, listen, I admit when I'm wrong. I admit when I'm wrong.
Yeah, listen, Jay, I would love nothing more than to eat crow for any of the guys that I've, like, if I've given a dude a hard time and I've been critical, prove me wrong. I would love to be wrong. Give me the opportunity to come on here and say, Aaron Nola, I was wrong about you. You name it, right? But this is the opportunity for him to be able to flip the script on that narrative and say, I am this. I am a guy that you can rely on. I am a guy that came up in your system and is now productive. So, Jay, that was fun, man. That was a ton of fun. Listen, before we get out, right, before we do final thoughts, something that came out earlier this week, that the Phillies are going to play in Williamsport next year, in that they have the MLB Williamsport Classic, right, where they play at the
Little League
the
World
minor league stadium in Williamsport, which the idea of those games I love, right? And the fact that the only people that can be at that game are all the little league teams is even better.
Oh,
But I
agree.
love the fact that the Phillies are going to be there next year. The Phillies are going to play the Nationals.
Have they ever been there?
They did. They played the Mets a couple years ago, maybe 3-4 years ago.
Okay.
So, I just love the idea of that. It's just something fun to be able to get to broaden the idea of what baseball can be. It's one of the things that I'll say baseball gets right.
Yeah, among some of the things they don't get right.
Truly.
Many things they don't get right.
Well, listen, before we jump in to final thoughts, Jesse put this comment up when we first got started, and I didn't get a chance to kind of highlight it. Jess, you're doing great things over at Flyers Alley. They've got a lot of exciting things going on the Old City Network. They had one of their pods was interviewing Kevin Weeks, which was a big get for them. So always doing great stuff, brother. And we'll connect on some other stuff as the hockey season starts to ramp up. But thanks for checking in. Joe was checking in. I'm sure Joe's driving somebody somewhere.
Well, speaking of Jesse, huge shout out to Jesse as well. He had recommended a documentary, and I've been meaning to watch it.
Go ahead.
And so the other day I watched the Manti Te'o documentary, and it's called Untold.
Oh, my God.
Untold is what brought me into this documentary, and I had remembered what Jesse had told me, the Untold documentary on the Dansbury Trashers.
Jay.
Did you ever see that yet? Like,
yes.
I've been wanting to watch it, and I had watched the Manti Te'o thing, and I was like blown away.
Yeah.
And then I watched this thing, and I had totally forgot about that Dansbury Trashers thing, and like it was like real life mob. It was like it was Sopranos, like in reality.
They do give some inklings into that like that was kind of where they started to get the idea for Tony Soprano from stuff that this guy was doing.
It makes you wonder, dude, because it was like
crime. It's called Crime and Punishment.
Yeah, that was an Untold is documentary.
Untold is a really good series on Netflix. There's one on there's one on a point shaving scandal that was at Arizona State.
Malice at the Palace.
The Malice at the Palace, which is a fascinating. If you haven't seen that one,
that's the next one I'm going to watch. Yeah.
And then on Tuesday, Jay, they're coming out. They're releasing the next episode, which is about Tim Donaghy and the corrupt ref in the NBA who was betting on games.
I saw the preview.
Who I didn't realize is a Delco guy. He's a guy from Delaware County. So,
anyway, shout out. Yeah, if you have not watched any of those documentaries, they are all mind blowing. Like, honestly, they do a tremendous job. Netflix, whoever runs that.
Yeah, whoever's doing the production on that is great and they're really easy watches. They're like 2 hours.
Absolutely.
So, final thoughts, brother?
Final thoughts. As always, I try to, look at real world stuff and just love one another. Just be there for your friends, be there for people. And if you haven't checked it out, I had my next episode of Hate to Feel on Thursday night, and we had a special guest, Peanut. For those of you that don't know Peanut, he's Moyo Rivera, and he's the other half of Jeff from Birds, Beer, and BS podcast on AAT Network. But he came on, and what a tremendous guy. I mean, just a lot of great stories, and he really was able to bring a different perspective to what we're trying to get across to people. So if you haven't checked it out, please do so. If you haven't checked out his content, please follow him. He's awesome. And that's my final thoughts.
Listen, Jay, I'll tell you, the part I love about that show is that it's just a very frank, honest conversation. And what I can appreciate from the conversation was his mindset, right? And how that mindset shifted, and how you capitalize on the power of positivity and just make that part of every decision and every part of your life, and how that can just change the outlook and then the outcomes on a ton of stuff. So it was something I wanted to talk about, to mention that if you haven't gone and checked it out, man, it's a really good listen to try to just get yourself to start thinking about things just a little bit differently, and realize that, one, that you're not the only one going through stuff, and two, that you've got the opportunity to make changes, if you're willing to kind of put in the work. It was a really cool episode, brother.
Appreciate it, man. Like I said,
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm just blessed to know so many good people that are willing to, make a difference. And I did talk about, I had an idea that I'd like to get a bunch of our fellow podcasters together eventually and do a podathon for mental health. That's
Sure.
So,
all right. That sounds cool, brother.
it would be a great idea, great kind of camaraderie, bring people together, and for a good cause. And obviously, it's something I have to plan, but it's definitely in the works. It's the thought is there. It's just I have to come up with a plan. So
sure, absolutely. And listen, Jay, we spend a lot of time putting other people's stuff out there. For final thoughts, I wanted to just kind of share some of the stuff that we're doing. We've got a lot of really our sponsors are ones that they do a great job at supporting us. So you've got Lots of Rain luxury watches. They're all, if you go check out, all the information is all in our link tree. Over here, Team Clicks does a really good job at connecting sports and eyeglassware, which I know you've made you've been able to dive in and make that purchase. They've got the interchangeable side pieces, so you can always kind of rep your team. Shocked Energy, which is now part of they're part of Level Up Snacks, which provides energy-based snacks and drinks, and Streaker Sports, which they have a really cool collection of all sorts of sports gear, from defunct teams to sports stuff from movies. They've got a lot of really cool stuff, and we've got our merch, which you can go check out anytime. We've got a ton of cool stuff on there as far as what we're ways that you can kind of support us directly. Also, Jay, you can find our podcast on the Belly Up for Friends feed. So any of our colleagues that are part of Belly Up are kind of congregating all the pods all in one area. So if you like our stuff, there's a lot of other cool stuff that you can go out there and see what some other people are doing. Some of it's national, some of it's localized, right? There's some people that are doing the same thing that we're doing in Philly, they're doing in Chicago, they're doing in California. So if you want to go check that out, and as always, right, we've got our stuff on Spreaker, so you can go find that stuff over there. We're doing the game highlights, right? So if you're missing those pregame highlights or the postgame highlights that we're putting out the next day, the 2-minute highlight package where you can kind of get yourself caught up on whatever happened the night before. Just give yourself you can go over there and check out. We've got a lot of really cool stuff going, and we're just looking to kind of put that honest conversation about whatever's happening in Philly sports. Brother, ton of fun today.
As always,
brother. Go Phils.
Ring the bell.
Ring the bell. Oh, wait, hold on. If we're going to have a Phillies pod, Jay, there's only one way we can end it on this one.
Hey, listen to this guy. Tell me how you're feeling here. You're screaming.
I am stoked, baby!
You're screaming like it's still the game going on.
We're talking about the Fightins here. The Fightins! Said!
Said, Mike.
Yeah.